They spend substantially less time in Washington, D.C. They have substantially smaller staffs. And I will suggest to you, along with a balanced budget amendment to the United States Constitution, where we can hold future Congress's feet to the fire and not spend more money than what we have, that this country would be in better shape. I'm hearing lots of better shape. So the idea, and so really this election is going to be about who is it that's going to be most prepared, who has the discipline, the vision, and who has the experience of that type of executive governing experience to go to Washington, D.C. and not be absorbed by that environment. You know, and I respect anybody that puts their name up to run for the presidency of the United States. Let me tell you, every one of those individuals that I share the stage with, I have great respect for. To put themselves through that process, to sacrifice from their family and or their businesses and what have you, I've got great respect for that. But I also think it's important for us to draw the distinctions and the differences between ourselves as well. And I'm the one outside of that crew. You got members of Congress, you got an individual who is from that Wall Street culture. And I'm the only one that's been fighting Washington, D.C. for at least 11 years as the governor of the state of Texas, pushing back on federal agencies that have come in to try to usurp the power of the states. I'm a big believer in our founding fathers' vision of this country. When they had spent this period of time in the New World, if you will, building these colonies, becoming a country as they saw it, they saw this faraway, centralized, all-powerful, king telling them how to live their lives and paying taxes without any representation and and they were willing to put their treasure, their futures, even their lives at risk. And they knew when they signed that Declaration of Independence that they were putting it all on the line. But they also knew that they could not live under this repressive, all-encompassing, faraway government. And they were some truly visionary people. I think the night that we did the debate in Sioux City was the 220th anniversary of the signing of the Bill of Rights. And that 10th Amendment that talks about the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to it by the states, are reserved for the states, respectively, or to the people. I mean, that's simplistic, and it's elegant in its simplicity, though. That the Constitution gives some clear, enumerated powers to the central government, the federal government, but everything else is left for the states to do. The idea that there's a Department of Education in Washington, D.C., that tells you in Iowa how to educate your children is really foreign to me. Well, it's not foreign to me, but it ought to be foreign. I mean, I understand because they want to consolidate all the power. And they've done quite a job of it. As they've expanded their sphere, our liberties and our freedoms have become smaller and smaller. I'm not sure our founding fathers would recognize the country that we live in today. When you graduate from high school, it's going to be one of the biggest days of your life. It's going to be something that you really remember. As you walk up on that stage, as you're planning that ceremony with your classmates, the idea that some legislator in a robe, as I refer to activist judges, is going to tell you how and when or why you can pray is very, very disturbing. And that's where we've come in this country. is that we've allowed these politically correct activist judges in too many cases to be telling us how we're going to live our lives. We've allowed for a Congress to take free rein in passing these pieces of legislation that our founding fathers never meant for Washington, D.C. to be imposing upon us. And I think it's time for us to take our country back. And I think it's going to take an outsider to walk into Washington, D.C. and to clearly state to them that if you send one earmark on a piece of legislation, I'll pull out that high-priced veto pen and veto it. That's the type of outsider courage and discipline that Congress is going to hear from me. I'll work with them every day to try to find the solutions to the issues that face this country. But when it comes to compromising my principles about budgetary issues, I'm not going to do that. Because his future is too important. And that's what this election is really about. It's about America dealing with $15 trillion worth of debt that is now hanging out there over all of our heads. It's about taxes and regulations that are stifling entrepreneurs from going out and having the confidence that they can hire people and create jobs that in turn create the wealth that will help pay off that debt. It's about having a President of the United States who will quit playing politics with things like a pipeline from Canada to the United States. Oil that's going one of two directions. It's either going west and China will buy it, or it's going to go south for the United States processing and consumption. That's a no-brainer for me. This thing has been studied for 3 years, and I think the President's argument that, well, we just need some more time to take a look at the environmental impact. Mr. President, we've looked at it. It's going to be one of the safest pipelines ever built in history. There are pipelines already going across the Ogallala Aquifer. This is all about responding to an activist, radical environmental wing of his party and listening to them and letting them drive him to make what I would consider to be a really bad mistake if he vetoes that bill that has that pipeline in it, because of the jobs that we need so desperately. There are 13+ million Americans without a job. And until we get jobs created in this country, we can't have the wealth that can help pay off the debt, that helps strengthen America's military, which in turn strengthens our ability to have a strong foreign policy impact. And it all goes back to our economy, though. So I got to ask you, are you better off today than you were $4 trillion ago? Think about that. This president did an experiment with America. He said, if we'll pour this much money, if we'll pour these trillions of dollars into these stimulus programs, we'll get America back to work. It was an experiment that's failed miserably. All it's done is put his life and his future at jeopardy because of the debt that's been created. We must elect a president that has the courage to go in, put a tax system in place, and I put a 20%, I'm not going to sit here and go through all of my programmatic items for you now. If you'll look on rickperry.org and you'll see that 20% flat tax, that will be a tax cut across the board for all segments, but it will also give people the confidence that they can risk their capital. Pull those regulations back that have come in since 2008. Test them for whether they create jobs or they kill jobs. If they're job killers, they're gone. That's simple. Get America back working again. And for 11 years, I've had that experience of doing that. In a government type of a environment. As the governor of what I will argue is the most successful job-creating state in the nation. And we've done it by keeping the tax burden as light as we could on the job creators, a regulatory climate that is fair and predictable, and a legal system that didn't allow for overstory. And then try to get out of the way. I want to go to Washington, D.C. for you and try to make it as inconsequential in your life as I can. And one of the ways about doing that is by dealing with the taxes, dealing with the regulations. And that's what this election is not about me. It's never been my purpose in life to be the President of the United States. But I've been so blessed. I mean, growing up in Paint Creek, Texas, and my father served this country as a tail gunner on B-17s in 1944. Flew 35 missions over Nazi Yellow Germany. To come home, to live in peace, to be married, to farm his little piece of land out there in the corner of Paint Creek. And he did that. But he also taught me it was my responsibility to get back to my country, to get back to my state. It's never been my purpose to be the president. It's been my purpose to serve this country. That's what this election is about. It's my opportunity to stand up and serve my country one more time. Because our country's in trouble. And we have to have someone, we must have someone who is an outsider, who has that principled leadership. An individual who every day will go forward with you in mind, who understands what the average American is going through out there. And I see it in my state. And those people who are sitting around the kitchen table tonight, who don't have the dignity of a job, because we have passed so many regulations and we have taxed so much that the entrepreneur out there just stands back and says, I can't risk my capital because I don't know what this Obamacare is going to cost if it's implemented. I don't know if the bank is going to loan me the money because of all this raft of regulations that have been put in place by the Dodd-Frank banking bill. That's what's happened to America. And we need someone with the courage to go forward. And it's not just about me. It's for all of us.